You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauren Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy-to-implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life. Comparison is the thief of joy. Teddy Roosevelt. So how's it going, Travis? What's been new with you?
Well, it's good. Last night we had another football game and the team kicked butt again. It was 35-0 after the first half. And then we benched all the starters. And we are now ranked number 1 in the state.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Congratulations.
Yes. So I just walked into a great scenario, gave a little bit of good info for the players and coach from my rehab, background and stuff like that. And I don't know, I have a decent shot at being, winning a state championship in my first year as an assistant coach.
That would be cool. So cool.
Yeah, and I will take almost zero credit, and I deserve almost zero credit.
But you deserve some.
It's so much fun just being with the kids. I don't need any credit.
That's so cool.
Never will. They're so cool to hang out with and to watch just achieve stuff that nobody really thought they could. They weren't ranked very high to start the season. So
wow.
See how the next couple of weeks go. We play the current number 2 seed in the state next week. So who is playing the number 3 seed today?
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So it's an exciting time for football.
Yeah.
Anyway, so how's it going in your life?
It's pretty boring this week. I really didn't do a whole lot other than work. The good part is that Flagstaff has now decided it's going to be beautiful weather between the winter and the windy season. So we're in that really beautiful week of time where it's 60, 70-ish degrees and not windy. So it's amazing outside. And we've spent a lot of time just walking with Keely, our puppy.
Nice. I forgot. We went snowshoeing for the first time last weekend.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we went up high in the mountains and took Duke snowshoeing because he's a crazy snow lover.
Oh, that's so fun. Was that the picture you sent me? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah. When I sent you the picture of my new car, all dirty.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Both the car and the world around it.
Yeah, it's gorgeous up there. That's where we went on Saturday, and then we went to a different beautiful spot on Sunday.
Oh, that's so cool.
That we had never been to. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's good.
So, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, a couple weeks ago, I don't remember if it was even in the podcast or just in our conversations, but you had made a comment that you said comparison is the thief of joy, which was our opening quote today. Found out that's from Teddy Roosevelt.
It's not a Lauren original, you guys.
No, we can't take credit for that. But I wanted to look into, is comparison really the thief of joy, and is there any scientific evidence one way or the other? Because especially in today's social media world, it is so much easier to compare yourself to people your age that you've never met. So I think it's more relevant now than probably ever.
Definitely. Yeah.
So when I think about comparison, I think that there are some negative possibilities and some positive possibilities of comparisons. And I can see negative and positives for social media, comparing yourself to people on social media, whether you know them or not, don't know them. Also, one that I see often, very, very often in my clinical experience is comparing yourself to the past, to you of the past, which again, I can see as a positive and a negative because we're always changing. So you're never the same as good as you were a year ago. You're either better or you're worse pretty much. Than you were a year ago. But either way, we'll talk about that some, and also comparing yourself to your peers. Again, I can see positives and negatives to all this stuff. What are your first thoughts on that stuff?
Well, I like that you said that there's positives to comparisons, because in my first initial reaction, I completely agreed with this quote, obviously, of comparison is the thief of joy, because I have always seen comparison as kind of this negative thing. And when you're comparing in maybe a more positive way, because that does exist, but I don't think of it as comparison, I guess. I don't know why. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. But there is positives to it. And I don't think I'd ever really thought about it in that way. So it was interesting. I like that you brought that up. Yeah, pretty cool.
Well, I think that, yeah, there's definitely positives to it. Because if you think about it, if like if you're striving for better, you have to be comparing yourself to something better, whether it's
Right.
just like we talked about, creating the future that you want. The future that you want, by definition,
Is
has to be
that better than what you have?
than what you have, right? But if you don't have that to reach for, you can't create it. So there
Yeah.
has to be some sort of comparison
If
in
you
there.
don't know that it exists, how do you know that you want it? Or
Right.
that it's possible, or that you could do? Yeah. Yeah. I definitely
Right.
agree with that. And I like that you brought up comparing to the past, because like comparing yourself to yourself, that's a really good one that I can like latch onto, as there is a positive to both, right? Because like I can't be the person that I was in high school. That maybe like that version of myself is kind of glorified in my head. But also, like, why do I want to be myself in high school? Because I don't like a lot of the other attributes. Like maybe the physical part of it, I guess I like, but maybe not even that. But I really like, I had so much growing to do. I was so young in high school. I didn't have very much of the wisdom, if you could call it wisdom, that I have now. I didn't have critical thinking skills. Like I've grown a lot. So there's negatives if I want to focus on the negatives, but also there's positives because like, holy cow, I've grown so much since the human that I was in high school.
Yeah, I don't think I look back at my high school days and I'm like, oh, I wish I was that guy.
I don't ever want to go back to high school. That's for sure. Like, I don't want to necessarily live in that existence ever again.
Well, I wouldn't want to be in my high school self. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
With the same brain experiences, stuff like that, because I'd be giving up so much
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
from my experience that I've learned from since then. So there was an article that summarized some research for us, which was really convenient, from psychologytoday.com, that we'll of course link to in the show notes, that I thought was pretty good. And I think you had some things that you wanted to talk about it. So I will let you go over that one.
Yeah. So this article talked about who we compare ourselves to matters. So like if you're comparing yourself to like the fittest person that you know, or like a fitness pro, or something like that, when you're just getting started, that can make you feel really insecure. It can make you feel like you've fallen really short from your goal. It can make you feel like you'll never be able to reach that goal if you want to become more fit and you're just starting. And I just had a conversation with somebody the other day who was just starting their fitness journey, or had started maybe a year ago, and she had told me when she was starting, she was watching a lot of these like fitness pros and wondering why she couldn't do the exercises that they could do, or like wonder why she would get out of breath in 30 seconds or whatever, and it just makes you feel so bad. I've done that. I've totally done that. But again, it's that comparison to somebody who is so much further along than you, when like they have done that, they were you before. You're just not seeing that part. So comparing to somebody who's closer to you in terms of like how far along they are in that goal is easier to feel like, oh, this is achievable, as compared to like a superstar fitness pro.
Right. Yeah. Somebody further along can have some really great tips for you,
For sure.
especially if you're trying to build a certain body part. If you're a woman that wants to work on her triceps because you don't like those flabby underarms, they can have some really good tips for you. However, don't compare your triceps to the
Yeah.
person that's been doing those exercises for 10 years. They're going to have better triceps than you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's important too is like if you have a conversation, like an actual conversation with even a person who is way farther along, like Travis, you said they could have some tips for you because they have been you, you know? So instead of just idolizing these people who are farther along, actually have a conversation with them rather than just compare yourself and then feel bad because everybody starts somewhere with a goal. Um, I thought that was a really important thing that this article touched on.
Yeah, I like that one. And also just recently, I was introduced to some interesting comparison um, research that goes out of the realm of health and fitness and exercise. It goes into I look at this research as like the ultimate keeping up with the Joneses type research. So basically, there's several studies that have done this. We got one from University of Albany that they looked at relative income to absolute income and what people's perceptions of that are. And I will explain it to you real quick. But basically, they did a survey. So survey is not really real high level of evidence, but it does give some perspective into how people are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been, like I said, reproduced several times in the literature. But they said option A, you can make something like $50,000 and your peers are making $40,000. Or option B, you can make $60,000, but your peers are making $70,000. And they said, which would you prefer? And approximately 50% in most of these studies choose option A. So in other words, you're choosing to make less money, but you're making more in relative terms because you're making more than your neighbors and your peers.
Oh, that's interesting. So the choice is really, it comes down to like whether you want to make more money in general. So like if you're going to make 50,000 compared to 40,000, or would you rather just make less but more than your peers? That's weird. That's surprising that 50% of people would choose to make less money as long as it's more than their peers. I think that's surprising. Is that surprising?
I don't think it's overly surprising just because of my finance and personal finance backgrounds and interest in that. I've also, in similar studies, I've seen where if you have the choice between hanging out with your close peer network being people that are more intelligent or less intelligent than you, most people will choose to be with the less intelligent group because that makes them feel superior, which makes you feel a little bit better. This is one of the reasons that people watch the news so much in studies, is because it's like, oh, I'm not happy with my life, but Jesus, Lauren has, 6 kids and 3 of them are criminals, so at least I'm better than her.
Lauren does not have 6 kids. Lauren has 0 kids. Just
Right.
to be clear to our listeners.
Because you disowned them all after they went to jail.
No, I don't have any children. Oh my gosh. That was a hypothetical example. Thank you
That was
very
a
much.
very hypothetical example about a different Lauren.
But yeah, Lauren with an E probably, not Lauren with a Y. Okay, but yeah, I get your point. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, the money one really surprises me, but the intelligence one doesn't. And maybe that's because I'm just dumb when it comes to like how people think about finances. I have no background in that. So that's just really surprising. But the intelligence one didn't surprise me as much because like that's like being what is it, the big fish in a little pond or something, and like you feel really comfortable. And like I remember when oh, when I was an eighth grader, and like you were the oldest, like that was the top notch of your junior high class or whatever. You finally got to be like the big bad eighth grader. I don't know. I didn't feel this way as a senior in high school, but I felt this way as an eighth grader. And I remember not wanting to go to high school because I didn't want to be the like, in the big pond or whatever. It was scary because I was going to be like the little one again. And I liked being the big bad eighth grader. Not that I was anything like a big bad eighth grader. I sure felt like it. So I guess I can relate to that. But definitely as I've grown older, I would rather be surrounded by more intelligent people.
I find it interesting, and maybe this is just because of my life experiences, and maybe part of it's because I wasn't really an overachiever when I was younger. And part of my family was, so it's like I was always I was always kind of with the people that were doing better, at least in my head. But
Yeah.
what I remember from being very young, and like track meets, and you all participate in like track events in elementary school gym class.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly, if I ran next to the fastest kids in the class that I knew were faster than me, my times would be better than if I ran next to
That
somebody
makes
that was
sense.
slower than me, because they push me, right? If
Mm-hmm.
I know I can beat George, I don't have to try very hard. And I'm so competitive that I'm racing him, not the clock. But if Adam
Right.
is faster than me, I'm gonna try my darndest to catch him and beat him. And it inevitably made my scores better every time that I ran with
Hmm.
somebody faster than me. So I think that I've often strived to put myself in a group where I'm not, maybe not the lowest
Yeah.
in terms of talent or whatever, but definitely not the highest. I don't want to be the highest.
Yeah, and that makes sense based on that previous article, right? Is like you don't want to be comparing yourself to like the top notch whatever. You kind of want to be that more moderate comparison. So like people who are a little bit faster or a little bit smarter or whatever. And like so I'm non-competitive. We've talked about this before. So when you brought up that like that was your experience because you're so competitive, that immediately made me think, well, is that the way I work? Because I'm not competitive at all. So why would I choose to be around people who are better than me? And I mean, I immediately came to the example of, well, why am I friends with you? Because I see you as better than
Uh,
me at a lot of things. Yes, did you not know that? Because
well,
remember,
thanks,
I
Lauren.
when we met in PT school, I immediately recognized that you were a better studier and more efficient studier than I was, which was a huge hit to my ego because I prided myself on those skills.
And I could eat far more than you, and I held the door better than anybody else in the class on the first day.
Yeah, I mean, there was, like I said, a lot that you were better than me at. But because you were better than me and more efficient than me at studying, but you were nice and you held the door open, which made me realize that you were a helpful individual. I never was in competition with you for grades. I was learning from you. It was literally like you were teaching me how to study and you were teaching me how to be better. And that's what motivated me, I
Well,
guess.
well, thank you for those compliments. And I'm very glad that you weren't in competition with me for grades, because it would have brought you down. Because that is one area of my life that I never competed against anybody. My goal was a 3.0 in grad school. And for those of you that don't know, you had to get a 3.0 in grad school to
Yeah.
graduate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I strived for definitely strived for the best. And I beat my goal. I will say I'm an overachiever.
Good job, Trav.
3.0. So I found another one we had mentioned in social media,
Mhm.
specifically. And I found a study, a 2020 study, I think it was, might have been 2019 research that was published in 2020. But
Nice.
anyway, they studied the effect of comparison with others and social support on your life satisfaction, and they were looking directly at Facebook. And what they found was that upward comparison equates to lower self-esteem and lower life satisfaction.
Hmm.
And the more upward comparison with others, the lower the self-esteem, which leads to lower life satisfaction. So if you're really looking at people that are doing so much better than you, it really has a big effect, a big negative effect on your life satisfaction, which we can interpret as happiness.
Yeah, and that's not surprising at all, like
No.
by any means. Travis, you and I were having a conversation before when we were just brainstorming about this topic, is like social media is so cultivated that you lose sight of what it even is real.
Yes.
I mean, from filters to like posed pictures, like Travis, you came up with an example when we were just chatting about how like somebody could be posing next to like a Lamborghini in their picture, right? Like on Instagram or something. And so you see that picture and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person has like a 20-year-old has a Lamborghini. Like, how I'm so far behind, I'm never going to achieve that status or whatever. But then like you see a TikTok of the making of that photo and it turns out it was somebody else's, you know, Lamborghini that this person like jumped a fence to go pose next to a picture of and pretend like it was theirs. But like, it's so fake. A lot of social media, like you cultivate what you want people to believe, and it's a lot of highlight reel and it's a lot of false reality, right?
Yeah, so there's I've seen some TikToks with the guys that own the Lamborghini, and they'll go over to their cars because this happens all the time, especially in places like Miami and LA and stuff. And there will be this kid or this group of kids, young people, posing next to it to get their shot for Instagram to show that, you know, they're bawling, and not crying for, you know, people like my mom that don't understand what bawling is. Bawling is like, you know, throwing out the cash in the music videos.
Being a real cool kid.
That's right. But they'll be doing that, and the guy will come over and he'll start asking them questions, and they'll be like, oh, is that your car, man? Really cool car. And they'll be like, yeah, that's my car. And then the guy filming them saying that this is their car pulls out the key, and he's like, I don't think that's your car, and like hits the panic button, and they're all sitting on his hood and stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
funny. I
His
haven't seen
videos
those
are,
before.
yeah, they're on there. So yeah, a lot of liars on social media,
Yeah.
lying about how amazing their life is, and inside they're probably just miserable looking at those cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shoot, I want that, you know, and they're just
Yeah.
posing.
It's a non-real perception of reality. And you know, one of the things that I've been really vocal about on my social media is how even edited bodies are on social media. Like Facetune, you can literally change your appearance. You can fade away stretch marks. You can, you know, decrease the size of your waist. You can erase cellulite. Like you can make yourself not look like yourself, but because that's what is inundated for a lot, like that's what you see all the time on social media, that you forget what a real body looks like, which is nuts. Like I have stretch marks, I have cellulite, my skin moves when I move, amazing, you know, that's a real body. And I get really frustrated that we don't see those things. Like, why don't people, everybody that I've talked to after starting to be more vocal about this has been like, I didn't realize that other people had stretch marks. Like fit people have stretch marks. Fit people have stretch marks. Fit people can have cellulite. Like it doesn't mean that you are not a real or fit or healthy person. This is what normal bodies look like, but our reality is so skewed because of what people post on social media that we think we're like, it should be something we're ashamed of. Like for the longest time, and I still struggle with this, but for the longest time I didn't wear shorts because I have stretch marks all over my legs from childhood when I was growing into my body. But I was so ashamed of stretch marks because that's like not even like people, you only really talk about stretch marks on like after pregnancy or something like that. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, I'm 10 years old. I'm not pregnant.
I have stretch marks.
Right. Like fit people can have stretch marks. It's from bodies changing. And it's not, it doesn't mean you're not a healthy person. But like, and Travis, when you told me that, it blew my mind because clearly I'm still struggling with this concept of people's bodies are real and they move and they change and they can have stretch marks. Oh my gosh. Because you're one
I
of
had
the most fit people I know.
I had an accident and I had extreme atrophy after breaking multiple bones. And I have stretch marks on my left pec and shoulder. I call it the pec shoulder highway, connects you right here. Back when me and a friend were lifting in college, we didn't know what it was called, but it would always get sore.
Oh,
So yeah, so we would call it the pec shoulder highway.
the pec shoulder highway. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so I have stretch marks on my left side from that. But yeah, you just gave me a good post too. I feel like we should make a post just like exaggerating like crazy, like Photoshop my
Oh my
biceps
gosh.
being like this.
I mean, but really, and it doesn't even
Like
have
Popeye.
to be, it doesn't even have to be that exaggerated. Like I could take a picture of my stomach when I'm flexing and it looks nice with like high-waisted pants, but then I could roll down my pants, make them lower waisted and stop sucking in and it would look like a totally different person. Like you can change the way your body looks just by changing the way that you're holding your muscles.
Well, I'm definitely gonna have a Popeye bicep after the spinach.
Yeah, post spinach bicep. Got it.
Anyway, so what can people do to make themselves happier, and what is a way that they can make comparison useful and useful in achieving their goals instead of making themselves potentially more unhappy with themselves?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I honestly think I learned something from doing this episode because clearly I have had a very negative view of comparison in the past. But after doing a lot of research and after even just chatting with Travis about the way that he views comparison, I think we do have some strategies that we can provide that I can also work on. One of those being realizing and recognizing that you're likely using an unrealistic target to compare yourself to when you're feeling negative about yourself in comparison to somebody else. So like comparing to the fitness pro is probably not a good idea if you're just starting out. So one of the articles that we read, I think it was the first one, the Psychology Today, had suggested like listing the top 7 people that you know in the category that you want to be better at. And then instead of comparing yourself to the number 1 person, compare yourself to the number 7 person, because that's likely, again, it's less of a gap. It's a more like realistic example. It's a shorter term goal. It's a more achievable goal. And then like when you're comparable to your number 7, then of course you can keep bumping up to keep getting towards your goal. But you don't want to start by being so overwhelmed with where you are versus where you want to be that you can't even start.
Yeah, I like that one. And the other thing that people will do, and I've been guilty of this in the past for sure, is comparing myself to the past or comparing yourself to your past version of yourself. And I'll give you for instance, in physical therapy school, I struggled to get myself to really push myself to do pull-ups. I was often running on, 5 to 6 hours of sleep because I worked so much and everything. But so my body wouldn't feel that good in the first place. But the bigger thing was because I used to be able to do a set of 30 or 40 pull-ups without really any problem.
Wow.
And that was back when I was working out 3 hours a day, every freaking day.
Yeah.
I was in the gym working out for 3 hours, and then I don't do that anymore. I don't allow that kind of time for that. But I would compare myself to them, and I was stuck at like 8 pull-ups in a set. And I was stuck for years until probably 2 years. Well, I can tell you exactly when it is. And your husband got me over this partially.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So at my wedding, we had an impromptu pull-up
Oh yeah.
competition. Do you
Oh
remember
yeah,
this?
I remember that.
Yeah. So I still had not done more than probably 10, maybe 12 in sets in working out. And he was pushing me a little bit, but ultra competitive guy here. I was not going to lose, especially at my wedding. Come on.
Yeah, that's true.
So, so I did 23 in a set down there. And I remember this because it was like, well, what the hell? If I can do 23, why the hell am I stuck at 10? And it was like, and that was one of the things that led me to like, what am I really capable of? And what am I letting myself down on over and over and over again? Which we'll get into more in later episodes. But realizing that it was just like I needed that push. And if I push myself, I can still get close to that. I mean, 23 and 30 are not that far off.
Yeah.
Especially when you haven't been doing them.
Yeah.
Because I kept looking back and I was like, I want to be able to do 30. I want to be able to do 30. I want to be able to do 30. I'd just get down on myself and I wouldn't do any. And it was just horrible and I wasn't improving and blah, blah, blah. So now what I do is I say, so if I go into the gym today and let's say I do a set of 20 pull-ups and I'm like, I want to get that better. I'm comparing to today. There's no point in comparing to when I was 25. That was 8 years ago.
Right.
I haven't continued to do them, so I can't do what I could do at 25.
Right.
But I can do, if I do 20 today, I can shoot for 23 in 3 weeks and then 26 and then get back to that 30 that way instead of just being like, well, it's not 30, screw it, I'm done.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what I go over with my patients all the time. It's like, what can you do today? Tomorrow is a new day. Be a little better tomorrow. Take the steps, break it down into those small goals again that we've talked about over and over and over again, because we're going to keep beating them into your head. Break it down to those small goals and those action steps to get yourself to where you want to be. But your starting spot is today, not 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago. Or before you had that injury.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're not the same person that you were 5, 10, 15, however many years ago. So why would you compare to that? So easy to say, a little bit harder to do in practice, but I like and I use that a lot too. I like the concept of comparing to today. Like that's what we're living right now. Why would you compare? Why would you think about that other person that you were in a previous year? Like, why would you start there? There's no point. Your priorities have changed. Your body has changed. Things change between then and now. So it's really not even a fair comparison at all. I think the only valuable, maybe not the only, but like one of the valuable ways to compare to the past, if you're going to take a positive out of it, is to compare to like the past when you were beginning. So like, when you got to your 23 in Costa Rica for your wedding, comparing to like when you started working on that goal again, not when you started working on the goal the first time when you were like 25 years old, but when you were working on it this time and comparing to that version, right? So comparing like where I was when I started my fitness journey to today and looking at how much I've improved over that time. And another thing that I think is valuable, this is moving on from looking at a past version of yourself, is looking at it in the sense that, well, who might be looking at you and seeing you as a role model if you're feeling bad about yourself in comparison to somebody else? Well, who would be looking at you and wanting to be you? And why do you think they would want to be that version of you?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
That could motivate you.
I think it just brings a
And
sense of gratitude instead of, I don't know, like looking down on yourself and feeling
right.
frustrated with yourself. It makes you grateful for where you are
And
because
go ahead.
just
Sorry.
because you're, I mean, you were probably them at one point wanting to be you too.
Yeah, and another good thing to look at that way. So instead of looking at them and being like, "Oh, I can kick his or her butt," in this, so I'm satisfied. No, look at it like maybe if you're competitive, like he or she's coming for me, and I got to keep going. Or he or she is looking up to me. What is the example that I want to set for them?
Ooh, I like that. You just gave me chills because that motivates me.
Yeah. So he or she is looking up to me. What is the example that I want to set for them so that when they get to where I am now, they have a new place to strive for, but they're still looking up to me, not that they have to go find somebody else to look up
Mhm.
to.
Yeah.
So I like that one. So I think, Lauren, at this point, unless you have something else you want to say real quick,
I don't think
I
so.
think we could make another challenge. And I'm going to make this a repeat challenge. So I think that this episode ties in well to the compelling future episode that we did, where
Mhm.
we challenged you to create a compelling future for yourself, make the goal, write down your daily action plan, and start going for it. And I hope that you have done that. However, if you haven't done that, it's not too late. Let's do it now. So do the same challenge. Go back and listen to that episode if you need to, but do the same challenge. So let's make a comparison to where your life is now and where you want to be in the future. Write down that future and then make your action plan to get to that future. And like we did it in the last time, make it a 2-3 month goal that you're setting for yourself. Don't say, "Oh, I want to get to be able to do sets of 50 pull-ups." If you're right now, you can do 4,
Right. Make a realistic goal.
make a realistic goal for 3 months. And that doesn't mean that you can't get to that 50, but let's take that 4 to 10 in the next 3 months,
Right.
make a daily action plan for that. And then when you hit that 10, then you make a goal for 20, and then so on and so forth. You keep going. And if you did do that challenge from the compelling future episode and you're kicking butt on it, if you feel like you've got that one down, make a new challenge. So then you're working on 2 things at once. If you feel like you've got it down, if you don't feel like you've got it down yet, revisit it, go back to your action plan for that one and keep doing that one.
Yeah, I like that. And then, I mean, even if like there's somebody in your close inner circle that is already where you want to be, that's not like, like LeBron James or whatever. If there's somebody who's a little bit further along than you, ask them for advice, ask them for help. Like it doesn't need to be like dog eat dog world. We can all offer each other some advice and some help. And I mean, I've asked Travis for help before and I've helped other people before. And that's one of the most fulfilling things that I think I could do with my life. It's part of why I wanted to start this podcast is, I mean, I'm learning things as we're actively making these episodes that can better my life. And then we're passing that knowledge along to you guys to hopefully better yours as well. So use that comparison that we've talked about in this episode and reach out to somebody who's close to you in your inner circle who could maybe help you along the way.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I hope you're still enjoying it. Please reach out with any questions, comments, or episode ideas, things that you're struggling with and you want to work on. Yeah. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.
That was fun. Bye.
That was fun.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.